Hello, everyone. I'm here continuing to introduce all the exciting speakers we are going to have at the conference in Sofia, 8th to 10th of November, Startup Bulgaria. So today I'm joined with an expert on corporate innovation who spent a lot of time with early stage startups, and this is Christian Kunz. Hi, Christian. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Augie. Nice to be here. Thanks a lot.
So I guess many people will check your profile on LinkedIn, but for those of you who still don't know you, can you elaborate a little bit what were you doing over the last years and how are you helping early stage startups?
Yeah, certainly. So I spent the past 8 years working at a company called Plug and Play. Plug and Play Tech Center is a Silicon Valley-based startup accelerator and early stage investor. I joined them at the end of 2015 with the task of building up some of our European operations, which very quickly led me to establish the first accelerator program focused around retail and fashion industries in Paris. The specificity of this accelerator was that, on one hand, it was built to help startups from very early stage up until Series A, Series B, to help them with their growth and their development. But on the flip side, it was also there to help corporations in that industry drive their own innovation capacities. So the key element was to help the startups and the corporations work together to bridge the gap, while also obviously providing all the specific services that the startups required, from fundraising support, building a sales team, managing a sales funnel, all of these tricky things that are necessary when you're starting a company. So I ran that office until the end of last year. And since then, I've been embarking on my own entrepreneurial journey since then.
Nice. The passion for entrepreneurship. Great. Okay, you
Yeah.
mentioned you.
Surrounded by many exciting founders, inspires
Yeah,
you.
I can imagine that. And you mentioned you were creating an acceleration program, and I'm sure that many of the people that are joining the conference have thought about or have considered an acceleration program. Would you advise any founder to join an acceleration program?
In general, I would say yes. I think what's important when deciding to join an accelerator is the purpose that you're doing it for. It could be because you're very early, you're just starting out, and you want the accelerator to help you build a certain structure in the company. It could be because you're looking for corporate clients, which might be part of that accelerator, looking to work with startups. It could be because that accelerator will invest in you if you're accepted. Today, there's many accelerators out there. They all have slightly different models. And the key thing is not to engage yourself in something unless you really know what you're trying to get out of it, because it can be time consuming. It does require commitment. We always asked for a certain level of commitment from the startups in our program to ensure that they benefit to the highest degree, and also ensure that the corporations that were part of this program were also benefiting. So I think that's very important. It can be a real driver, but you also, again, really have to make sure that it's responding to needs that you have, and not don't just do it
Yeah.
to do it. Do it with a clear goal in mind, and then also do your research, because there's, again, a lot of accelerators. Some of them are very good, some of them are not so good. If I may say that, with less impact. So you really have to be careful about that, because the most important thing you have as a startup that you don't have much of is time, and you don't want to be burning it on something that doesn't bring you forward.
Got it. And you said you spent years helping corporations with innovation, kind of connecting startups and corporations. And now that you're coming to the conference, apparently you meet many Bulgarian businesses, startups, and corporations that maybe so far haven't thought of this, let's say, partnership. Is there anything you can advise any maybe Bulgarian corporation or maybe even a startup that hasn't tried connecting with corporations? Like, is there any useful thing?
Yeah, so I think the first thing to note is that startup corporate collaboration is a very tricky thing. Inherently, the companies are as different as they can be. One of them is usually very big, a lot of processes, move slowly, a lot of risk attached to making mistakes. Whereas the younger startups are more agile, faster, might be a little, let's go fast and break things. Mistakes are part of it, and you need to embrace them. And so, kind of bridging that gap is the challenge, and that goes for both sides. So, I think one of the key elements that we always told the startups was typically you say, okay, the corporation's too slow, they have too many processes, the IT is old, et cetera, et cetera. But we always told them, listen, if you want to work with these guys, you have to adapt to them as well. They have to adapt to you, of course. They have to make decisions a little bit quicker. And it's part of that process also of engaging in a cultural shift by working with these kind of startups. But on the flip side, the startups also have to, you know, find a middle ground between them. So I think that's the first key thing, is understand that there's differences, and embrace them and try to find ways to work around them, and not one person gives everything, but it's a partnership. And the second thing is really, not every corporation is going to want to work with your startup. And if you push them, you want them to work with you, that's not going to work. Find specific challenges that your solution can address, and then you'll be speaking their language. They are there if they want to work with the startup. They need to see that it's going to bring them further. It's going to solve an internal business challenge. It's going to help them increase revenue, reduce costs, reach more customers, whatever it is. And if you can accurately portray that benefit to them and how you will address it, the chances of working with them will largely increase. So yeah, that's just a couple of pointers to start with, but you'll be finding out more when you hear me
Exactly.
speak.
Okay, and then maybe one more question. You mentioned that, I mean, apparently for years you were helping founders and you were helping early stage startups, but now you're having a startup on your own. So maybe what were the main difficulties that you had in this doing this switch from helping others to being the entrepreneur yourself?
Well, first of all, I would say that the difficulties are not over; they're in full flow. So it's an early stage process. I still haven't officially launched the business yet. Um, some of the things that were particularly difficult is you go from working in a team. I was managing a directly or indirectly team of roughly 20 people, obviously surrounded by great people every day in an office, to being by myself with a co-founder, but not always in the
Yeah.
same space. And obviously working from home, because I'm not going to invest in an office yet. So I think that personal and change the way you work element was took some time to get used to. But then, yeah, I mean, after that, it's the big difference is that you're working for a company before, even though I was part of a young company that was growing, and I had the opportunity to build a lot of things and kind of try things out and fail. So it was a little bit like a startup. Ultimately, I was still employed. And so at the end of the week, let's say, I would, not be working anymore. Whereas now, every decision that I make is my decision. Every mistake that I make is my mistake. So there's obviously more at stake personally, and it just never stops, right? Like there's no more Monday to Friday. It's Monday to Sunday, and then Monday again. And that's not something you got to used to. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, then you know that already. At least you should, because it is very time consuming. But if you're enjoying what you're building, then it doesn't really seem like
Got
that.
it. Okay, and then maybe one more question here will be, because you've seen so many entrepreneurs chasing success, and now you're yourself working towards success. So, what is your definition of success? When is an entrepreneur successful?
Um, I think that's a very good question. And I mean, there's obviously a baseline of success, right? I mean, you want to be running a business that is selling a solution or selling products that work, that people want to buy, that you have customers, you're making revenue. You're to a certain extent profitable, let's say, although obviously in tech that's a bit of a
Yeah.
murky word. There's many very big companies that aren't necessarily profitable, but that you could say are successful. But I think ultimately, not every company, not every startup is going to be $1 billion company, and that's fine. And if that's your ambition, then great. Then you also have to make sure that the business that you're building can reach that. Otherwise, you'll be disappointed. But I think success is very subjective. And beyond that, obviously, initial barrier of having a business that runs, employees, making money, being profitable, being able to live off it, obviously, there's different levels of success that you can achieve. If you're running a business that maybe does 20 million, 30 million in revenue a year in the next 5 years, and that's good enough for you, that's success. If you want to get to 100 million revenue and that's your goal and you get there, that's success as well. If your goal is to be acquired by a large tech company in the next 5 to 10 years and you get there, that's success. If you want to be unicorn, you get there as well. So that's how I would define it. It's very subjective. And again, not every company is going to be $1 billion company, and not every company should be $1 billion company and shouldn't strive for that, because you can be very successful at a much smaller scale. And as long as you're aware of what you want out of it, and also are flexible enough to adapt your expectations, then success can be, let's say, more
Got
easily
it.
found.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that, Christian. Maybe one more question would be, so generally, and I think you're exactly in the right position to be giving advice. What would be? I mean, I'm asking every lecture that we're going to have in November on to give some advice to someone who is just starting. So, what is the advice that you would give to someone who is like maybe still on the way to hesitating? Should they start a business, or they already just started and it's a little bit difficult? What would be your advice to them?
So my main advice would be, don't just start a company or a startup because you think you should, or because you think it's a cool thing to do, or because you want to make money. I mean, obviously, everyone wants to be able to live well and be successful in that sense. But you need to choose something that you're passionate about. You need to choose something that you can wake up every day, and every day really, even the weekends, even holidays, even whatever, and work on it. Because, and that can be anything, right? People have different tastes. Someone might like to build some kind of brand. Someone might want to build a company active in the space of AI, or a CRM solution, or a new payment solution. I mean, people's passions are very different, and those passions can come from different elements. Maybe it's something you personally like to do. Maybe it's a field you're really interested in, or a field you already worked in that you feel very comfortable in and that you know you can be successful in. There's different ways of looking at it. I'm not just saying follow your passion. You like football, so you should start a football-based startup. It's really something where you can wake up every day for a long time and be excited about it and give 150%, because that's what it's going to take. And choose an idea based on that. Choose an idea based on something that you can have that kind of excitement about. And then, of course, something that is new, something that has not been done at all, or not in the same way, or not in your country, or not in your region. Don't choose something that there's many different options of, unless you can do it much, much better. So yeah, I think those were the two things that I would recommend. And again, coming back to the previous question you asked me, don't just do it because you think you should. Because if you're not going to be able to really put your back into it and really work every single day on it, then it's not
Got
going to
it.
work.
Okay, very valuable advice. Thanks for sharing that, Christian. So I think by now
My
we
pleasure.
are all persuaded that there are so many things we can learn from you during your session at the conference. I'm sure everyone will be looking forward to the session in November. So highly appreciate your time. Thanks for sharing all this advice here, and I'm looking for much more in November. Highly appreciate your time, Christian. Thank you.